So Torah continues this week. So if a person has two wives, one he likes, one he doesn't like, or one he dislikes and then he likes, and then he has the first child from the one that he doesn't like, tells us the Torah that when it comes time to when he gives his Yerusha, he can't give to the second one that was born first, to the second wife. He can't give him the double portion. It belongs to the first one. So we now know that we're talking here about Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Bahamas. What's the lesson over here? As we start our journey and we find ourselves, and now we become confident, and now there's a hatred, there's a hate. How come? There's a dislike, there's a resentment. Tells us the Torah, no, this is not how this works. We have to recognize where we come from. We have to recognize the apple cannot turn back to the bark of the tree and say, you're rough and tough, you're mean. Look at me, I'm so beautiful. Look at my cheeks, I'm full of color, I'm full of taste. Everybody loves me, everybody blesses me, and you're nothing. This is not how this works. We have to understand where we come from. We have to honor where we come from, because ultimately, if not for the tree being the tree, the apple wouldn't be on the tree. So this is a very important, deep lesson, especially here that we're going into. We are in the Yid Gimel Midas Harachamim. We're in El, going into Rosh Hashanah. It's very important to, as we spoke this week, to sit in the silence, to stay in the calmness, not to pass judgment, not to leave, not to let anything go. It's time to collect. It's time to bring the energy back home. It's time to bring it back to the heart. It's time to bring it back to your little Beis Hamikdash inside your heart. Inside the heart, this is where the karbanos are being sacrificed. It's not out there. The development and the growth is not going to be happening by squeezing and by stepping on others, by passing judgment on the one that doesn't see yet and the one that may never see, or maybe his level of seeing is what he sees right now, and that's very, very powerful way of seeing, because from that, as so to speak, the judgments passed on others, this is how I found myself. So it must be he's doing something right, because on the other side of that, there's something very powerful happening. So the job here is to have tremendous compassion, to dig deeper, to use that as a trigger to find the deeper sense of self. And ultimately, we already know now, if you're going to see positive, if you're going to project positive, positive will come back. It will come home. There's going to be remember whatever plays out here is just a muscle. It's a nuclear reactor. There's going to be a nuclear explosion of where the positivity, where the Achdus is going to be happening. It's all happening in the Achdus. It's happening in the circle. Aguda Achdus. So we should go into Shabbos with in a collective consciousness. We're stepping into a collective consciousness, stepping into a collective womb. We have one thing in mind: to get back to our essence, to get back to peace and rest, rejuvenate, recover. Once we recover, the burnout brings when a person is, after a long day, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of there's a lot of pain, and the head is screaming. But when you have a good meal and you drink a hot cup of tea and you take a hot shower, everything calms down. We find the love, we find the peace. So it's just those few moments that we need to hold. And once it passes, then there's no cleanup that has to be done. There's no cleanup that has to be done. And so it goes on the other side also, not to pass judgment. If somebody is getting vocal and getting loud, to hold, let it pass. It's going to pass. So we don't need to create a whole new. We don't need to create a relationship in the conflict, not to feed the conflict. Have an awesome Shabbos.